General Zixtar looked through his battle screen at the small human patrol below. His 4 red eyes focused on the group of 8 soldiers moving across the rocky surface of the moon. They looked so small and weak compared to his own warriors. Their weapons were old and simple. Their armor looked like it would break if someone threw a rock at it. The general had fought in many wars across the galaxy. He had won battles on 17 different planets. His dark shell was covered with scars from countless fights. Today should be easy. His 21 elite soldiers were hidden in the rocks, waiting to attack these humans. It would be over quickly. Sergeant Jake Murphy led the human patrol. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm eyes. He carried his weapon like he had used it many times before. Behind him walked Private Lisa Carter, a young woman with blonde hair tied back. She moved carefully, watching everything around them. The attack started when Jake stepped into the open area between 2 large rocks. Purple energy blasts came from all directions. The alien weapons were much more powerful than anything the humans had. Each shot could melt metal and turn stone into glass. Jake dove behind a boulder as the deadly energy flew past his head. The heat was so intense that the air around him started to glow. Any normal soldier would run away or surrender. These humans did something different. Lisa Carter took a hit to her shoulder. The energy blast knocked her down and burned through her armor. She should have been screaming or trying to escape. Instead, she rolled behind cover and started calling out enemy positions to her team. Jake saw that Lisa was hurt. Without thinking about his own safety, he ran across the open ground toward her. Purple death filled the air around him. One blast missed his head by inches. Another burned the ground right next to his feet. He reached Lisa and picked her up with one arm while shooting back at the aliens with his other hand. "I got you," Jake said as he carried Lisa to safety. "Stay down and keep talking. We need those enemy positions." Zixtar watched this and felt confused. In his military, wounded soldiers were left behind. It was logical. Saving one soldier usually meant losing more soldiers. But these humans seemed to think differently. Corporal Danny Rodriguez moved like he was dancing through the alien fire. He jumped from rock to rock, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to aim properly. Each time he moved, he fired his weapon with deadly accuracy. 2 alien scouts fell to his shots. The general's aide, Commander Velnoth, moved nervously beside him. "Sir, maybe we should send more warriors. These humans are fighting harder than expected." Zixtar raised a clawed hand for quiet. He wanted to see what would happen next. Something about this battle was different from anything he had experienced before. Specialist Amanda Brooks ran out of ammunition for her weapon. Most soldiers would panic when this happened. Amanda did something that shocked the watching aliens. She picked up rocks from the ground and started throwing them at the enemy positions. Her aim was so good that she actually hit 2 alien warriors in their weak spots. While throwing rocks, Amanda kept shouting information to her teammates. 3 enemies behind the tall rock on the left. 2 more moving toward Danny's position. "Jake, there's a sniper up high at your 2 o'clock. What disturbed General Zixtar the most was the sound of human laughter. In the middle of this deadly battle, the humans were actually enjoying themselves. When Jake made an impossible shot that killed 2 alien scouts with 1 bullet, he grinned and called out to Lisa. "Did you see that shot, Carter? Even my old drill sergeant would be proud of that one." Lisa laughed despite her wound. "Show off. Just wait until I'm back on my feet." This was wrong. This was all wrong. Soldiers were supposed to be afraid in battle. They were supposed to follow orders without question. They were supposed to care about winning, not about each other. These humans seemed to be having fun while fighting for their lives. Private Tony Garcia was the youngest member of the patrol. He looked barely old enough to be a soldier. When 3 alien warriors rushed his position, he should have run away. Instead, he stood his ground and fought them hand to hand. His small human knife somehow found weak spots in alien armor that energy weapons could not penetrate. The battle lasted 3 hours. General Zixtar kept expecting the humans to surrender or die. Neither happened. Instead, these 8 soldiers with their simple weapons slowly picked apart his elite force of 21 warriors. The humans moved like they could read each other's minds. When Jake needed covering fire, Danny was already shooting. When Amanda ran low on rocks to throw, Lisa tossed her extra ammunition. They protected each other without being told to do it. When the battle ended, Zixtar could not believe what he saw. All 8 humans were still alive. Lisa Carter was wounded but already joking about getting a cool scar. His 21 elite alien warriors were all dead, but But that was not the most shocking part. After the battle, the humans did not celebrate their victory. Instead, they checked on each other's health and shared their food and water. Jake sat next to Lisa and helped clean her wound while she told him about her sister back on Earth. "She's getting married next month," Lisa said. "I promised I'd be there to help her pick out flowers." "You'll make it back," Jake said with certainty. "We all will." Zixtar watched them pack up their equipment and prepare to continue their mission. They moved efficiently, but they also took time to honor their fallen enemies. Danny said a few words over the alien bodies before they left. As the human patrol disappeared over the hill, General Zixtar sat in his command chair and tried to understand what he had just witnessed. These were not just soldiers. They were something he had never encountered before in his long military career. His warriors fought because they were ordered to fight. They obeyed because they feared punishment. They won battles through superior weapons and numbers. These humans fought because they chose to protect each other. They followed their leader because they trusted him. They won through something that had no name in the alien language. That night, Zixtar could not sleep. He kept thinking about the sound of human laughter in the middle of battle and the way they carried their wounded friend to safety. Something important had happened today, but he did not yet understand what it meant. General Zixtar spent the next several days reading every file his people had about humans. He wanted to understand what made these creatures so different from every other species in the galaxy. What he found made no sense according to everything he knew about war and military power. The humans had only been traveling in space for about 200 years. This was nothing compared to most galactic civilizations. The alien hegemony had been conquering worlds for over 3,000 years. Human technology was simple and old compared to what other species used. Their ships were slower, their weapons weaker, their armor thinner. Yet the battle records told a different story. Humans had fought against much stronger enemies and somehow won. Not just once or twice, but again and again. Every time they should have lost, they found a way to survive and fight back. Captain Rick Martinez had been commanding a cargo ship when a powerful alien warship attacked him near Proxima Station. His ship was not built for fighting. It carried food and supplies, not weapons. Any sane person would have surrendered immediately. Instead, Captain Martinez did something crazy. He aimed his cargo ship directly at the enemy warship and flew straight toward it at full speed. While he flew toward certain death, he broadcast something called country music over all radio channels. The enemy ship tried to move away, but Martinez's ship crashed into it and exploded. Both ships were destroyed, but the human colony was saved. The recording of Martinez's final message was stored in the alien files. "Tell my family I love them," he had said, "and tell everyone that humans don't give up even when we probably should." Zixtar played this message many times. In his culture, dying for no military gain was considered waste and stupidity. But Martinez had saved thousands of human lives by sacrificing his own. The aliens had learned to fear cargo ships after that day. At the siege of New Gibraltar, the aliens had surrounded a human colony with overwhelming force. The humans should have surrendered within days. Colonel Beth Williams was in charge of the defense. She had only a few hundred soldiers against thousands of alien warriors. But Colonel Williams did not just use her soldiers. She taught the ordinary people of the colony how to fight. Farmers who had never held weapons became deadly fighters. Shopkeepers learned to make bombs from household items. Children too young to fight became expert messengers and spies. The siege lasted 8 months. Every day the aliens expected the humans to surrender. Instead, the resistance grew stronger. The farmers knew every hill and valley. The shopkeepers knew every building and tunnel. The children could move through the colony without being seen. In the end, the alien army gave up and left. They had lost more warriors than they could afford, and the humans were still fighting as hard as ever. The colony was free, and every person in it had become a soldier. But the recording that truly shocked General Zixtar was from something called the Arcturus Incident. Lieutenant Commander Alex Stone was commanding a human ship when alien Marines boarded it. His crew was outnumbered and outgunned. The aliens were taking over his ship section by section. Most commanders would try to escape or surrender when defeat was certain. Alex Stone did neither. He locked himself in the engine room and began singing something humans called Amazing Grace while he prepared to destroy his own ship. The aliens tried to break down the door, but Stone had sealed it too well. They could hear him singing while he worked to overload the ship's power core. His voice was calm and steady, like he was happy about what he was about to do. When the ship exploded, it destroyed the alien boarding party and crippled their main warship. Stone's final message had been sent to Earth. Tell my wife Sarah that I love her. Tell Command that humanity doesn't surrender. Zixtar found himself listening to that message over and over. The human had chosen to die rather than let enemies take his ship. But he had not died angry or afraid. He had died singing. The more files Zixtar read, the more confused he became. Humans had no central government that controlled everything. Their planet was divided into many different countries that often fought each other. They spoke hundreds of different languages and followed different customs and beliefs. This should have made them weak. A divided species could not fight effectively against a united enemy. Every military expert knew this. But somehow, when aliens attacked any human territory, all humans became united instantly. Soldiers from different countries would die to protect each other without question. During the Battle of Titan's Ring, American pilot Laura Kim had flown her damaged fighter into enemy fire to save a wounded Russian pilot named Boris Petrov. They came from countries that had once been enemies. But that did not matter when alien ships were shooting at them. Before she died, Laura's last transmission was heard by the entire human fleet. Boris, get home to your kids. That's an order from your wingman. French Marine Captain Pierre Dubois had held a defensive position for 6 hours to let Chinese civilians escape from New Shanghai. He died with an alien claw through his chest, but he was still firing his weapon when they found his body. His final words, recorded by his helmet camera, were simple. The children got away. It was worth it. General Zixtar realized that the aliens had made a fundamental mistake about humans. They thought humans were just another species to conquer and control. But humans were not like other species. They were apex predators who had somehow learned to care about each other more than they cared about themselves. Other species fought for territory, resources, or because their leaders told them to fight. Humans fought for something much more dangerous. They fought for each other. This made them unpredictable and extremely difficult to defeat. A human soldier would die to save one wounded comrade. A human pilot would crash his ship to protect people he had never met. A human commander would destroy her own base rather than let enemies use it to hurt other humans. This was not logical or efficient. It was not good military strategy according to any textbook, but it worked. It worked because it meant that every human was fighting for something they valued more than their own life. That night, General Zixtar sat in his private quarters and tried to understand what he had learned. The hegemony had been fighting humans as if they were a normal military force. But they were not normal. They were something entirely different. The aliens had superior technology, better training, and vastly greater numbers. But the humans had something that the aliens had never developed: the willingness to sacrifice everything for each other. This made them more dangerous than any weapon. The moment that changed everything happened during the Battle of Wolf 359. General Zixtar was commanding the Third Fleet of the Hegemony, 50,000 ships strong. They were attacking a human defensive force of only 300 vessels. By every calculation, it should have been the easiest victory of his career. The human fleet was commanded by Admiral Katie Sullivan. She was young for such an important position, barely 40 years old. Her flagship was called the UES Defiance, but it had not been built for war. It was an old colony ship that humans had attached weapons to. Most of her fleet was made up of similar ships, cargo vessels, mining ships, and passenger transports that had been converted for fighting. Admiral Sullivan's forces looked pathetic compared to the massive alien warships. Each hegemony vessel was designed specifically for battle, with thick armor and powerful weapons. The human ships looked like toys by comparison. As the two fleets approached each other, Zixtar expected to see the familiar pattern of human defeat. His ships would use their superior firepower to destroy the human vessels one by one. The survivors would either surrender or die fighting uselessly. Instead, something impossible happened. The human fleet began to move in ways that made no sense. Ships that appeared to be retreating suddenly turned and attacked from unexpected angles. Damaged vessels that should have been trying to escape instead moved to protect other ships. What looked like random panic was actually the most coordinated battle plan Zixtar had ever encountered. The humans had turned their entire defensive formation into a massive trap. Hidden among the asteroids were more human ships disguised as space debris. What appeared to be helpless merchant vessels suddenly revealed powerful weapons. Ships that looked like they were running away were actually leading alien forces into carefully planned ambushes. But what truly shocked General Zixtar was not the human tactics. It was the way Admiral Sullivan commanded her fleet. Alien commanders gave orders and expected instant obedience. They used fear and punishment to maintain discipline. They treated their ship captains like tools to be used and discarded. Admiral Sullivan did something completely different. Zixtar's ships intercepted human communications during the battle. What he heard made him question everything he thought he knew about military leadership. "Charlie, I need you to buy us some time on the left flank," Admiral Sullivan said to one of her captains. Her voice was calm and friendly, like she was asking for a small favor. "Can you do that for me?" "You got it, Katie," came the reply. "We'll hold them as long as you need." When Captain Martinez reported that his ship's engines were overheating, the Admiral did not order him to fight until his ship exploded. Instead, she said, "Fall back, Martinez. We'll cover you while you make repairs." The entire human formation shifted to protect one damaged ship. This should have created a weakness that alien forces could exploit. Instead, it made the human defense even stronger because every captain knew that Admiral Sullivan would never abandon them. The most shocking moment came when Captain Ben Harrison's ship took critical damage from alien fire. His vessel was crippled and defenseless. In any normal military, he would have been written off as an acceptable loss. The battle was more important than one ship. Admiral Sullivan did not see it that way. "All ships, we're not leaving Ben behind," she announced. "Form protective formation around the damaged vessel. We all go home together or nobody goes home." Every human ship moved to shield Harrison's crippled vessel. They risked the entire battle to save 37 people. This should have been a fatal mistake that cost them victory. Instead, it won them the war. The alien forces had been counting on human ships to act predictably. When the entire formation changed to protect one damaged vessel, it created opportunities that human commanders exploited brilliantly. Ships that had been retreating suddenly found themselves in perfect attack positions. Captain Rodriguez, whose ship had been nearly destroyed earlier, managed to get his weapons working again. "Admiral, this is Rodriguez. My guns are back online. Where do you want me to shoot?" "Wherever you think will do the most good," Sullivan replied. "You know your ship better than I do. This was wrong." This was completely wrong. Commanders were supposed to give specific orders. Subordinates were supposed to follow those orders exactly. Giving junior officers the freedom to make their own decisions should have led to chaos and defeat. Instead, it led to the most devastating counterattack Zixtar had ever witnessed. Every human captain knew their ship's capabilities perfectly. They had been given permission to use their knowledge and experience however they thought best. The result was 50 individual attacks that worked together like parts of a single weapon. Captain Lisa Park used her fast scout ship to lead alien fighters into a trap. Commander Tony Shaw used his heavy freighter as a mobile shield, while other ships attacked from behind it. Captain Amanda Wells turned her medical ship into a rescue vessel that saved crews from both sides of the battle. The humans fought with a level of coordination that seemed impossible. They did not need complex command structures because every person in the fleet would die before letting their comrades down. They trusted each other completely, and that trust made them unstoppable. General Zixtar watched his 50,000 ships retreat in defeat. They had been beaten by 300 human vessels, not through superior technology or numbers, but through something the aliens had never encountered: genuine care for one another. After the battle, Admiral Sullivan's fleet did something that completed Zixtar's education about human nature. They rescued survivors from the alien ships they had destroyed. Human medical teams worked to save wounded alien warriors who had been trying to kill them minutes earlier. When Commander Velnoth asked why the humans were helping their enemies, Admiral Sullivan's response was intercepted by alien listening posts. "Because that's what good people do. We fight when we have to, but we help when we can." That night, General Zixtar sat alone in his command chamber and tried to process what he had witnessed. The hegemony had spent centuries building a military based on fear, obedience, and the belief that strength came from the willingness to sacrifice others for victory. The humans had built their military on trust, cooperation, and the belief that real strength came from protecting each other. Both approaches worked, but only one was sustainable. The alien way of war created armies of slaves who fought because they had no choice. The human way of war created families of warriors who fought because they chose to protect something they loved. Zixtar realized that the hegemony had not just lost a battle. They had encountered something that made their entire philosophy of conquest obsolete. You could not defeat people who valued each other more than they valued victory itself. The next morning, General Zixtar began writing his resignation. He had spent his entire life learning how to destroy things. Now he wanted to learn how to protect them instead. When General Zixtar submitted his resignation, it sent shockwaves through the entire hegemony military command. The victor of 17 major campaigns, the architect of the Centauri offensive, the general who had brought 30 different species under hegemony control, was abandoning his post to join the enemy he had been fighting. The Supreme Council demanded immediate explanations. Fellow generals accused him of cowardice or madness. His own family declared him a traitor to their species and removed his name from their clan records. Military analysts searched for signs that humans had somehow corrupted his mind with psychological weapons. Zixtar did not care what any of them thought. He had spent weeks studying human military doctrine, philosophy, and culture through intercepted communications and battle records. What he discovered was a species that had somehow turned hope itself into a weapon. Humans did not fight because they were forced to, or because they had no other choice. Their planet was comfortable and their people were generally happy. They fought because they chose to protect something they valued more than their own lives: each other. The moment that made his decision final came when he intercepted a personal message from Sergeant Jake Murphy to his 8-year-old daughter back on Earth. Murphy was stationed on a dangerous forward base. Knowing he might never see home again, instead of being sad or angry, his message was full of jokes, encouragement, and love. "Hey there, little princess," Murphy said into his recording device. "Daddy found some really cool alien flowers today that reminded me of that picture you drew for me. They're purple and blue, just like in your drawing. I'm keeping one pressed in my journal to show you when I get home." Murphy talked about how proud he was of her school science project about growing plants in space. He laughed about the funny sounds the alien birds made on his planet. He told her stories about his fellow soldiers and made them sound like characters in an adventure book, rather than warriors fighting for their lives. "I carry your picture with me everywhere," Murphy continued. "When things get scary, I look at your smile and remember why I'm here. I'm not just fighting to win battles, sweetheart. I'm fighting so you can keep drawing pictures and learning about space, plants, and being the amazing kid you are." The message ended with Murphy singing a silly song he had made up about space flowers and promising to bring home some alien seeds for her. Garden Zixtar watched this recording dozens of times. In hegemony culture, personal attachments were considered weaknesses that made soldiers less effective. Warriors were supposed to focus only on duty and victory, but Murphy's love for his daughter did not make him weak. It made him stronger than any alien warrior Zixtar had ever commanded. Human soldiers did not fight for territory or resources or military dominance. They fought for the right to send messages like Murphy's, and to ensure that other parents could do the same. They fought to protect a way of life that valued love, creativity, and individual growth over conquest and control. The hegemony military was built on hierarchy, discipline, and the suppression of individual will. Every soldier was a replaceable part in a vast machine designed for conquest. Human military forces were built on something the hegemony had never developed: the voluntary surrender of self-interest for the greater good. This was not weakness. It was the ultimate expression of strength. It meant that every human soldier chose to be there, chose to risk everything, chose to trust their comrades completely. You could not defeat people who fought by choice rather than by force. Zixtar began preparing for his journey to human space. He gathered all the intelligence files he could carry and composed detailed reports about hegemony military strategies and weaknesses. If he was going to switch sides, he would make sure his new allies had every advantage he could provide. The hardest part was not leaving his old life behind. The hardest part was admitting to himself that everything he had believed about warfare and military service had been wrong. He had spent centuries learning how to conquer and destroy. The humans had shown him that real military strength came from learning how to protect and preserve. When Zixtar approached human lines under a flag of truce, he carried nothing but a simple message written in carefully translated human language: "I wish to learn." Admiral Katie Sullivan herself came to meet him at the border station. She was smaller than he had expected, barely reaching his lowest shoulder, but her presence filled the room. Her eyes were calm and intelligent, and she studied him with the same careful attention he had seen human commanders use when evaluating tactical situations. "General Zixtar," she said with a slight smile, "I hear you're looking for a career change." "I have spent my life studying warfare," Zixtar replied through his translation device. "I thought I understood what it meant to be a soldier. Your species has shown me that I understood nothing." Admiral Sullivan gestured to a chair that had been hastily modified for his alien physiology. The simple courtesy of providing appropriate seating told him something important about human culture. They had taken time to consider his comfort, even though he had been their enemy just days before. "What exactly do you want to learn?" Sullivan asked. Zixtar struggled to find words that would convey what he was feeling. His own language had no terms for what he was trying to express. "How to fight for something instead of against it," he said finally. "How to be part of something greater than myself. How to matter in a way that builds rather than destroys." Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. She studied his face with the same intense attention he had seen human soldiers use when making life or death decisions. Finally, she nodded. "Well, General, that's going to require a trip to Earth." 3 days later, Zixtar found himself aboard a human transport ship, heading toward the blue-green planet that had produced the most remarkable military force in the galaxy. As he looked through the viewport at Earth growing larger ahead of them, he realized that he was not just changing sides in a war. He was learning how to become someone completely different. Someone who fought to protect rather than to conquer. Someone who valued the lives of others more than personal glory. Someone who understood that real victory meant everyone going home safely. The ship's captain, a friendly woman named Carol Price, stopped by his quarters to check on him. "Nervous about Earth?" she asked. "Yes," Zixtar admitted, "but also excited. I am going to learn how to be a soldier who builds rather than destroys." Captain Price smiled. "You're going to fit right in, General. That's exactly what we do." 6 months later, former hegemony General Zixtar stood in the graduation ceremony at the Human Military Academy in Colorado Springs. The name on his new uniform read, General Zixtar, a compromise that had taken weeks of creative paperwork to arrange. The transformation from alien conqueror to human defender had not been easy, but it had been the most rewarding experience of his long life. Human military culture operated on principles that were completely alien to everything Zixtar had learned in his previous centuries of service. Respect was earned through competence and character, not demanded through fear and rank. Orders were suggestions to be improved upon, not absolute commands that could never be questioned. Soldiers were individuals to be developed and nurtured, not resources to be used up and replaced. His first real test came during a training exercise with a mixed unit of human and alien volunteers. Lieutenant Sam Parker, a young officer barely out of the academy himself, was assigned as Zixtar's liaison. When Zixtar suggested a direct frontal assault to complete their training objective, Parker politely disagreed. "Sir, with respect, that plan would work, but we'd probably lose about 30% of our people," Parker said. "What if we tried this instead?" The young officer outlined a more complex strategy that would take longer but would preserve the lives of every soldier in their unit. In the hegemony, such disagreement from a subordinate would have resulted in immediate punishment or execution. Here, Zixtar found himself genuinely considering the alternative. Parker's plan was better. More than that, it was better because it valued the lives of their soldiers as more than acceptable losses. The training exercise was a complete success. Every objective was completed, every soldier returned safely, and the unit worked together like a perfectly coordinated machine. As Zixtar watched Parker celebrate with his troops, humans and aliens working together as equals, he understood what he had been missing his entire military career. Victory was not about defeating enemies. It was about bringing everyone home. His integration into human society continued far beyond military training. Sergeant Jake Murphy's family invited him to something called a backyard barbecue, where he learned that humans actually enjoyed spending time together, without any tactical or strategic purpose. They cooked food outdoors, played games, and shared stories simply because they liked each other's company. Murphy's 8-year-old daughter, Emma, was not afraid of Zixtar's alien appearance. She showed him her collection of space flowers that her father had sent from various planets, and she drew him a picture of what she imagined his homeworld looked like. When she handed him the drawing, she said, This is for you to keep so you won't feel lonely on Earth. The simple kindness of this gesture affected Zixtar more than any military victory ever had. A human child had thought about his feelings and tried to help him feel better. In hegemony culture, such consideration for others was seen as weakness. Here, it was simply normal human behavior. He attended Private Lisa Carter's wedding to her longtime boyfriend, a civilian engineer named Mark. Zixtar had never seen anything like the human custom of celebrating the voluntary binding of two individuals in mutual support. The entire ceremony was about promising to take care of each other, protect each other, and face life's challenges together. When Carter asked him to sign the guest book, she said, "Thank you for being here, General. It means a lot to have family present." She called him family. A human soldier considered an alien former enemy to be family. The concept was so foreign to his original culture that his translation device struggled to find equivalent words. The most transformative moment came when he received an unexpected communication from his homeworld. His younger clutch sibling, Commander Kintar, had been monitoring human military reports and was beginning to ask questions about traditional hegemony doctrine. "Brother," the message read, "I have been studying your new allies. Their latest battle reports show tactics that prioritize preservation over destruction. Is this real? Can warfare exist without the assumption that someone must be eliminated?" Kintar described how he had watched recordings of human forces rescuing enemy survivors from destroyed ships, providing medical aid to wounded alien warriors, and treating prisoners of war with dignity and respect. These actions made no sense according to hegemony military theory, but they seemed to be standard practice for human forces. Zixtar's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Come to Earth, see for yourself." Within a year, Zixtar had become the unofficial liaison between reformist elements in the hegemony military and the human defense forces. His job was no longer to conquer territory or subjugate populations. Instead, he worked to spread what humans called defensive cooperation, the idea that military strength could exist for protection rather than aggression. He helped establish training programs where hegemony officers could learn human military philosophy. He translated human tactical manuals into alien languages. Most importantly, he demonstrated through his own transformation that it was possible to change from a destroyer into a protector. Young alien officers began requesting transfers to human units. They wanted to learn how to be soldiers who built rather than destroyed, who protected rather than conquered, who valued preservation of life over tactical victory. The change was slow, but it was real and growing. Admiral Sullivan promoted him to full general in the Human Defense Forces, with the specific mission of developing interspecies cooperation. His new uniform bore insignia from both human and reformed hegemony forces, symbolizing the bridge he had become between two very different military philosophies. The irony was not lost on him. The hegemony's most successful general had been converted not through defeat in battle, but through exposure to an entirely different definition of what victory meant. He had learned that the strongest military forces were not those that could destroy everything, but those that could protect anything worth preserving. As he stood in his office aboard the joint human hegemony station orbiting Earth, looking down at the blue-green world that had taught him the difference between winning and succeeding, Zixtar reflected on his transformation. He had quit his job as a destroyer of worlds and found much better employment as a guardian of possibilities. On his desk sat two items that symbolized his journey. One was Emma Murphy's drawing of his imagined homeworld, filled with colorful creatures and happy families. The other was a photo from Lisa Carter's wedding, showing him surrounded by laughing humans who had accepted him as family. He had come to Earth expecting to learn new military tactics. Instead, he had learned how to be part of something greater than himself. He had discovered that the most powerful force in the universe was not superior weapons or advanced technology, was the simple human belief that everyone deserved to go home safely at the end of the day. Outside his window, Earth continued its slow rotation, a blue jewel in the darkness of space. Somewhere on that planet, children were drawing pictures, couples were getting married, and families were gathering for barbecues. And throughout the galaxy, human soldiers were fighting to make sure those simple, precious moments could continue. Zixtar had found his purpose. He was no longer a general who conquered worlds. He was a protector of the right to draw pictures, celebrate love, and share meals with people you cared about. It was, he decided, a significant career improvement.